I see a lot of comments about people saying that they like 40K more, or they miss Warhammer Fantasy, or Age of Sigmar just sucks to them. They don't like the setting because it's not Warhammer Fantasy, or it's not 40K and it's not fantasy. It's kind of like an in-between thing. And I've kind of had these comments come up the entire time I've been into Age of Sigmar. And I'll be honest with you, it took me a while to get into Age of Sigmar. I think I picked up my first model back in 2016. And I was never really into Warhammer so much. Like, I worked in gaming companies my whole life. We always had someone that was into 40K or into Warhammer in general. And they would always talk about how cool it was, and we'd all get into it, right? Like, we'd start making our hammers, and we'd be making our rifles and stuff like that. I know who Layman Russ is, and I know, who Vulcan is because of all this stuff. I know about the Emperor, I know about the Star Child, I know about the Eldar. Like, I know these things because there was always someone that was super into it and always tell you about it. But I never had a dropping point to get into 40K. I still don't today. I still don't know how I would get into 40K to be invested in the story outside of all the footnotes that I've gotten over its 35-year history. Fantasy, I've played plenty of the Warhammer Fantasy games. I never played the tabletop game. I thought fantasy was really cool. As a matter of fact, I think fantasy is my preferred genre, right? I really like Warhammer Fantasy too. The stuff I've read about it, super dope. I thought it was awesome. But the thing with Age of Sigmar is it's something new. It's kind of like in between 40K, what it does with like it's an expansive ecosystem where the stories can take place. The mortal realms are vast. They're many and they're mighty. As someone that grew up going to the library after school, I would read a lot about demigods and I'd read a lot about gods and myths and stuff. I'd always be in the mythological section, the religion section, reading about stories, these really like larger than life, bigger than mortal stories. That's what Age of Sigmar is to me. Like, I'm reading that and I'm like, oh man, I feel like I'm a kid again, first getting into mythology, right? Because these stories are vast, they're extreme, they're biblical. Like, they are amazing to me to watch how they describe the gods, and the gods are like these, like you'd see these descriptions in scripture, or from someone that's fanatical or very devout about how their interaction with their perceived god or deity or spiritual being is. And it's really fun to read about that. It's really fun to read how unhuman the gods are, right? And their understanding, their machinations, and how they drive the world and how it affects everybody else. I think that that's super freaking cool for Age of Sigmar. I love the races. I think the different factions are super duper cool, and it always makes me think because there isn't like a really defined setting for it, right? Because the mortal realms are huge, and you can have small variants of different fundamentals of each kind of region or sub faction or whatever. But you can make an army your own, and it's real easy to do it. I always get stuck at the Warhammer store talking to dude about like what my story is for my army. Mind you, I haven't even played Age of Sigmar yet. I've only played it a couple times with my wife. I've played Soulbound more, and also that Stormground game. Don't don't mess with that one. Age of Sigmar is just like really, really cool. I like how they're taking the expansiveness of these realms that are bigger than they can even calculate. That there are gods moving the story, the mortals themselves that are driving hope for each of the different factions. And I just find this so fascinating how they all work together. It is like watching a medieval soap opera because this story's not going to end. The story's not going to end until they have their own end times. And how long did it take for fantasy to have that, right? Age of Sigmar is just going to be a continued story, and we're just going to see how these different grand characters interact with each other. And I find that super amazing. First, we had Chaos, then Nagash, who was a former ally of Sigmar, just decides, you know what, we're not bros anymore, Soul Thief, and causes a problem. Alario backfires with her life spell, and now Kragnos is up. Kragnos is running around curb stomping things, and like, who's gonna stop him? Who's gonna stop him? We don't even have that in the story yet. Who's gonna challenge him? Don't know. But it's cool to start seeing that stuff unfold before it's a footnote within 35 years of history. Anyway, that's why I like Age of Sigmar, and I definitely think you should try checking it out.